Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Today, folks, it's Wednesday, so we know we check into our expert, Dr. Gerald Horne, who is the professor of history and African American studies, to give you the Horne Report as we talk about everything from Ukraine to looking at black male voters as being a Democrat problem and so much more. Also, we're going to talk about what Bill Gates had to say about the state of the world, and his Bill Gates Foundation has put out in a report to show that, guess what? And since the United Nations started to assess where we are in this country and around the globe, things really haven't changed. Actually, Bill Gates said things have gotten much worse. Want to get your take on it. And then, of course, later we're going to talk about terminology in the classroom, how one teacher got disciplined simply for using certain terms on a worksheet. I'm going to share with you what those terms are and the impact of that in that school district. And we talk about the Emmys. We check in with Culture Crew member Neil Muhammad to talk about the impact of black women in Hollywood. So stay tuned. All of that is happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. And folks, we got a lot to talk about today. But before we jump into it, let's talk about the fact that White Fear is out, folks. Of course, we talked about the book that Roland Martin has authored, the book that talks about the browning of America and how it's making white people go crazy. White Fear is now available. Make sure you pick up your copy. And most importantly, continue to support Brother Roland as he's doing his work, and support us here at Black Star Network as we're looking to take the great work of media to the next level. So show your support. Go to blackstarnetwork.com, download the app, make sure that you support us financially, continue to share the content. And we thank you. Thank you so much for your support. All right, folks, we got a lot to talk about. So, you know, it's Wednesday. We check in with our great professor, Dr. Gerald Horne, to give us today's Horne Report. Peace, Dr. Horne. How are you today this afternoon, Doc?
You.
Good. It's always good to talk to you, to get your insight and analysis on what's happening at home and abroad. First thing, Doc, you've been staying on top of this whole Ukraine war. Now it's very interesting. Looks like Ukraine has built the momentum and the tides are turning, Doc. Let me just share with folks what President Zelensky has said about one part of the area in Ukraine. Check this out, folks. Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky said earlier today that the country's armed forces were moving forward towards victory as he praised the return of the Ukrainian flag to recaptured territory. Now, the president said that stabilization measures have been put in place in the liberated towns and villages in northeast Ukraine, where a significant counteroffensive by Ukrainian forces took place in the last week, leading to the recapturing of hundreds of villages in the region. He said, quote, remnants of occupiers and sabotage groups are being detected, collaborators are being detained, and full security is being restored, he said, adding in his nightly address to the nation that border guards have been sent to protect the state border and the liberated territory. He said, it is very important that together with our troops, with our flag, ordinary, normal life enters the deoccupied territory. Dr. Horne, is this a turning of the tide? Do you think that Russia is now officially losing the war?
I think that would be a premature assessment. However, respect should be given to the Ukrainian forces. In some ways, they emulated Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. In other words, They did a pump fake to the right, that is to say, suggesting that they were going to Kherson down near the sea, and then threw back to the left, that is to say, going towards Kharkiv. And they caught the Russians flat-footed. The Russians were in full retreat. And you should also factor in what the New York Times has reported, which is that the United States has been intimately involved in this latest counteroffensive by Ukraine, supplying not only weapons, as we well know, but intelligence also. And when Secretary of State Anthony Blinken was just in Kiev a few days ago, he released another multi-billion-dollar package, but the news did not give sufficient attention to the point that only half of that package was going to Ukraine. The other half was going to other neighbors who have problems with Moscow. I'm speaking of Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, Georgia, Moldova. In fact, in Georgia, a parliamentarian has just suggested that Georgia should declare war against Russia. So this conflict is far from over. It would be premature for Mr. Zelensky to spike the football and do a dance in the end zone. But once again, the Ukrainian forces deserve a tip of the hat for what they were able to pull off.
So how does this play out on the global scale, Doc, in terms of America's support for Ukraine? How does this play out with the bartering of resources in that area of Russia and Ukraine and with some of these neighboring countries? I mean, now that folks are seeing that Ukraine is actually resisting the occupation of Russian troops, do you think that that's going to cause the United Nations, surrounding nations, and even America to say, okay, we don't need to support them quite as much, or are we going to see a full offensive where, all these other countries, including America, will start to say, all right, at this point, not just make them retreat, crush them?
Well, it's hard to say. Let me throw out a few points that might help to answer your question. Point number one, President Putin and President Xi of China will be meeting in the next few days. This is the first foreign visit that President Xi has made for over 1,000 days since the advent of COVID. It's not coincidental that he's meeting with President Putin. That probably guarantees further Chinese support to Moscow. Secondly, you may have heard that the presidents of France and Germany have on their own called Mr. Putin. It seems to me if there was this idea that Russia was on the run, they would not be calling him, he would be calling them. And I think that bespeaks this gathering split amongst the Europeans, because you have German corporations, major corporations that are shutting down because Russia supplies their energy. Russia's turned off the tap. There's going to be a long, cold winter erupting in Europe. It may bring people into the streets nonetheless. Inflation is rising, just like it's rising in the United States of America. And there is gathering momentum in Western Europe to bring this conflict to a close. But if it is brought to a close, I don't think it will be brought to a close to the disadvantage of Russia. It'll be brought to a close to the disadvantage of Ukraine.
And so at this point, what can we expect at least over the next 30 days? Have you heard about any new timeline, either from Russia, Ukraine, or any other country, including the United States?
Well, first of all, with regard to Russia, they got caught flat-footed, as noted, with regard to Kharkiv, which is only 25 miles from the Russian border. In fact, there have been reports about rockets being sent into Russian territory from that region that Ukraine has just reoccupied, and that does not necessarily bode well for peace. However, I do expect the Russians to gear up to make a kind of counteroffensive against the Ukrainians' counteroffensive. I think that's one of the reasons you don't see that much celebration in Washington. Recall that President Biden had an opportunity just the other day to do a kind of touchdown dance with regard to Ukraine, and he adamantly refused. And I think that bespeaks the point that he does not necessarily see this Ukraine victory as telling the tale as to who will ultimately prevail.
Yeah, I think that's a huge, huge concern for the United States that, as to your point, to make any type of premature assessment. We saw that. I remember seeing that even with former President George Bush, the second Bush, where he stood on that Air Force
Right.
base, mission accomplished, and all of that stuff. And years later, we still feeling the remnants of that situation. It is definitely going to be very telling. All right, let's talk a little bit about something that, back here in the States, that you're seeing that as that war is waging, there's another war going on right now. And it looks like it's a war within the Democratic Party. Normally we talk about the Republicans, but in this case, it looks like the Democrats have a very, very big problem. Charles Blow, who is a New York Times columnist, he put out the assertion that the Democrats have a black male vote problem. Take a look at what he said, folks, from his latest column, as he talked about what's going on with our sister Stacey Abrams in Georgia. He said, why this when Stacey Abrams, and let me just give some context very quickly here, folks. Stacey Abrams had gone and did she found, based on recent polls, that black men aren't engaged in voting as much as people thought, that more black women are coming out, and black men, we're finding that more black men, not more, but there's a section of black men who actually voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020. And she found that black men either were not coming out to the polls or we're really disengaged. So she went on, she's been doing these kind of these I guess not a town hall, but these kind of forums where she's talking to black men in barbershops and black men spaces in Georgia, and having conversations about their issues. And she came out and made the point saying, if black men vote for me, I will win Georgia. And as a result of that, it's opened up a whole different kind of conversation around the importance of the role of black men in voting. So here's what Charles Blow had to say about this, folks. Take a look. He said, why this specific focus on black men? It is most likely because a Journal-Constitution poll from July found that Stacey Abrams was significantly underperforming with black voters, with just 80% of the black electorate supporting her, although Georgia Democrats usually get more than 90% of the black electorate. So she's about 10 points down, Doc, from this situation. Now, Mr. Blow has also put it out there. He said that he has seen, and this is the second part of his piece. He said, we have seen a similar differential between black men and black women's votes on the national stage. According to the Associated Press VoteCast survey, 12% of black men voted for Donald Trump in 2020, compared with just 6% of black women. This was consistent with 2016 levels, where 14% of black men voted for Trump. It should be noted that black men vote Democratic at a higher rate than other men, but the slippage is concerning for Democrats. Let's talk a little bit about this slippage here, Doc. What do you make of this? First, do you believe, as Charles Blow said, that the Democrats have a black male vote problem?
Not necessarily. I thought the article was interesting, but a bit overblown. First of all, the United States is moving to the right in general. You probably know that over half of white women voted for Trump in 2016 and in 2020. In Texas, you have a number of Latina Republican candidates competing for Congress, doing quite well. I'm speaking of Mexican-American women. You may know also that there may be a black woman problem insofar as the conservative lieutenant governor of Virginia, Winsome Sears, is a black woman with roots in Jamaica. You may have heard that in your neighbor to the north, speaking of San Francisco, when the progressive DA, Chesa Boudin, was recalled, the woman who replaced him was a black woman, Brooke Jenkins, who will be locking up more black men and black women than Chesa Boudin. So this is not just a black male problem. I think it's a national problem. And more to the point, I would say that a number of issues that are relevant to black men and are quite dangerous to black men are not necessarily focused on. I mean, what is the group that's most likely to be shot by the police? What is the group most likely to be found in prison? What is the group most likely to be found on death row? It's black men. But somehow you cannot point to that as an issue to make a specific appeal to this very important constituency. So I think that Stacey Abrams, who's running for governor of Georgia, a solid candidate, a Black woman, of course, a graduate of Spelman College in Atlanta, I'm happy to see that she's trying to focus on this issue. I just hope that she focuses on it in the right way. That is to say, pointing out some of these issues that I just pointed to, which is incarceration rates, rates of being found on death row, rates of being killed by the police.
So it opens up it is something that Stacey Abrams acknowledged too, Doc, to your point, where she said that Black men don't vote quite as much, or we're not seeing that high number of participation because candidates don't reflect the interest of Black men. Now, we know that in Georgia, there's the Raphael Warnock, a Black man who's running. But do you see that being the case that really Black men just don't see themselves represented well, and whether state office or even national office?
I think that's a point, and I think what happens is that many of them decide to stay at home. Many of them decide that voting is not worth their time. This is not just a Black male problem in the United States of America. If you go to South Africa, for example, you see that the vote totals for the dominant African National Congress are going down. But it's not because Black voters, not least Black men, are voting for the right-wing opposition. They're just staying at home. And I think that the key is to get people off their couch and into the voting booth by making appeals that speak directly in a dedicated fashion to their material interests.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let me take some comments from our online culture crew. Folks are checking in, Doc. And folks continue to post your thoughts on our YouTube and Facebook pages as we have this conversation with Dr. Horne. Alan checking in, Alan Richardson. Good to hear from you, Alan. You said Black men are not misinformed. They're just tired of the same old mess. I hear that. I hear that. I hear that, right? And I wonder, and this is no shade to women or anyone. But do you feel like, Doc, and I'm just saying based on the trends, that women find themselves to be more hopeful in this current system because of the seeming more opportunities for Black women to move along for upward mobility, to kind of get their voices heard more so than Black men, because we are confronted. We often are at the bottom, where we take the brunt of the punishment. Do you see that as being part of the reason why we may not see that high level of engagement from Black men?
Well, I think also you need to realize that with this recent push by the Democrats to drive women to the polls based upon the Dobbs anti-abortion decision, a lot of the emphasis on women is also helping to drive Black women to the polls as well. There is no similar issue that will help to drive Black men to the polls. And then if you look at figures, it's no accident, it's no coincidence that at most of our colleges and universities, there are more Black women enrolled than there are Black men. You could easily make an argument that this is a kind of legacy of slavery, because it's no accident that we oftentimes associate revolts against the status quo during that time with Black men, be it Gabriel in Virginia or Denmark Vesey in South Carolina, Nat Turner in Virginia. And there's always this idea that Black men, perhaps because of their heft and because of their testosterone and other factors, present a more dedicated danger to the status quo, which then brings them more negative attention, I'm afraid to say.
Yeah, and I would agree, and I'm glad that you brought those up. HBCUs, the abortion issue. It seems like, the best way that the Democrats can get brothers to come to the poll is, how about you deal with this police reform issue? I'm sure a lot of Black men would come out to the polls. Or how about you deal with the incarceration issue, where if you're coming out of the incarceration system, that you're not stigmatized and penalized over and over again. Like, cut some of the red tape and help to relieve some of the burden of coming out of this system. And I mean, when you just made that point, Doc, for me, it's like the Democrats got to think on various levels. It can't, you know, and I sometimes, and I see this, and I might be wrong in my assessment, so correct me if I am, but I just see like this one track mind sometimes, especially going into the polls, you know, I mean, going to the elections, like, okay, we're going to just be here. This is going to be our space. And then like the Democrats just kind of move in this one track, like, okay, we're moving along. But I don't know if that's going to be, if that's the best approach, considering you have 14% and 12% respectively who are voted for Trump. I mean, and Doc, you know it like I know it. I'm sure you heard it like I've heard it. Black men vote for Trump because of some sense of quote unquote his relatability of masculinity and his view about economics. His so-called billionaire status has prompted them to believe, to a lot of black men to believe, well, you know what I'm saying? He got the money, he runs businesses. I mean, it looked like he got a good sense of how the system works. Even though everything else seems to fall apart, even though his business practices are questionable, right? But that's the big thing. I think there's this masculinity and money thing, and that black men are attracted to that. And I think on the Democrat side, I don't think a lot of brothers, we see that. I don't, you know what I mean? That's not, and I could be way off, but I just don't see a strong black male candidate, for example. Or, you know, we had these wonderful women, but I think black men are like, okay, we know the women can hold it down, but what are the black men? What am I way off in my assessment here?
No, I think you're raising a fair point, something I have not underscored to this point, which is that we should not discard or downplay the question of male supremacy and male chauvinism when it comes to what's happening to Stacey Abrams in Georgia. There are black men who sign on to the male supremacist agenda. And I think that then leads them into the camp of Donald J. Trump. But I would caution and warn and advise and counsel these brothers to be very careful, because if we're not careful, I think that we'll be having a lot of time to debate this question about voting in concentration camps. And I do not say that with any sense of satisfaction or exaggeration.
All right, let me take a comment and then we take a quick pause here. Truth is power. You said black males vote Democrat in North Carolina most of the time because we're into progressive movements. We're not conservative. Conservative is for people who have wealth. Don't speak for me. Okay. Okay. And I'm gonna throw this out there. Then we're gonna take a pause because I want y'all to marinate on this one. How progressive are black men for real? See, Doc, you started laughing because you know exactly. I think I'm progressive, right? You know, to some degree. I like to believe, oh, okay, but I do know that there's a conservative side to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm progressive about certain views, but there are some views I'm like, well, we need to keep certain things in place. So I think to your point, truth is power, I think you're making an excellent point. We are in those progressive movements. We're not maybe not be ultra conservative, but I think we are conservative. I think men want to feel like men. I think that the family structure and the community structure, you know, we are always kind of put on our heads that we need to be the pillars of the community and the household. So there's a lot of things at stake. So look, we're going to take a quick pause, Doc. If you can give us a few more moments of your time, we greatly appreciate it. We want to continue the conversation. I'm going to continue to take your thoughts from my online culture crew, and let's continue to have the discussion right here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. Don't go anywhere.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking to Dr. Gerald Horne, the Morris Professorship of History and African American Studies from the University of Houston, as we get this week's Horne Report from Dr. Horne. Let's bring Dr. Horne back in. We've been talking about this whole impact of what Charles Blow, the New York Times columnist, refers to as the black male voter problem that the Democrats have. And I will say, Doc, a lot of people are checking in and sharing their thoughts on this and seeing the complexity of this issue just because there's some great concern. Should the Democrats be the concern? You mentioned in your previous remarks that Charles Blow may have be kind of like adding a little yeast to the situation, but but should there be a concern as we are only a few weeks out from the November election?
Oh, I think so. Even though the polls suggest that the Republicans may take the House by a narrow margin, but will not be able to take the Senate, we all know from 2016, 2020, if not before, that oftentimes the Trump vote is underestimated, thereby leading to a late surge by the GOP. Right. Therefore, the opposition to the GOP needs all the help that it can get, given the fact that by Mr. Blow's own admission, black men, to put it positively, are voting against the GOP by 86-14, to the extent that you can make an appeal to a black male voter. you are making an appeal to an anti-Trump voter, and that could make the difference in a very close election. So yes, the Democrats should take this column by Mr. Blow seriously. And as already noted, they should be crafting special appeals to the special needs and interests of Black men.
I agree. And I think just to throw it out there, Doc, because I feel like, and I might be the only one who feels this way, that these new ideas, these new efforts to get, various parts of the various segments of the electorate, it only comes around when it's election time. But they need to start thinking about this problem, quote unquote, for 2024. That number, you mean if by 2024, if the Republican candidate, whether it's Trump or whoever, it could be DeSantis, by 2024, if they're still in the double digits, 14, 15, 16, hell, it can go up to 20%. That's problematic. And I'm hoping that the Democrats are thinking on the long term and saying, okay, we got this 2022 election, but we got to really think about what presidential candidate is going to be able to speak to the needs, the interests of Black men in this country. You can't just super gloss over that, right? You can't just act like our voices don't exist. You got to figure out a candidate. And right now, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not seeing anybody, but that's another conversation for a different segment, for a different report. But I'm just saying that the Democrats need to figure that out. Definitely the Democrats need to figure it out. All right, let me get to a couple of more thoughts on this issue, then we can move forward. Tina Ray C, you checked in. Tina, good to hear from you. You sound like a new watcher. We appreciate you. You say, if you don't engage, you can't complain. A lot of politicians rely on not being held accountable because folks are not paying attention. Facts. Absolutely. And the thing is, I think for Black men in particular, we're not as hopeful because we got all of these other things that are coming against us. I mean, we know what's going on to a degree, whether you're in Los Angeles, Baltimore, with New York, Houston. We know what's going on because guess what? We're the center of the problem, according to the country's view of the problem, right? When you talk about health disparities, Black men. When you're talking about educational issues, it's Black boys. When you're talking about the criminal justice system, it's Black men. When you talk about health, when we're talking about food deserts, it's Black men. When we're talking about political engagements, Black men. We're at the center of all of these issues. So we know the issues, but we're just not seeing who is going to pave the way. And I mean, locally, we see Black men on the scene. I know that Black men are all over the place, local government and in states government. But once we get to that national government, for some reason, Dr. DeHorn, it just seems like all of those Black men start to just fall away, and we don't get that level of representation.
Well, number one, with regard to Mr. Biden, I'd like to see more Black men on his staff. I think Black men.
Come on now. How about that, sir?
I mean, that's something within his control. I mean, with regard to Congress, he can always say, oh, the Republicans stop me, they're obstructionists, they block me. He can hire his staff. So that's one thing. Number two, we all know with regard to this prison issue that state prisons and local jails are responsible for this skyrocketing mass incarceration amongst Black men. But there's a federal prison system as well that Mr. Biden has control over. I know that in certain state systems, they have special programs that do seek to rehabilitate inmates by providing more educational opportunities, for example, by improving the library system, by having law books so people can play the role of jailhouse lawyer and try to negotiate their way out of prison. So Mr. Biden should issue some executive orders with regard to these federal prisons, which he controls. I could go on in this vein, but I think Mr. Biden, in some ways, is asleep at the switch.
And Van Jones can't be the savior. Ouch! Did I just say that? Yes, I'm just saying. Like, we can't just go to Van Jones when there's Black men issues. Come on, man. Like, there aren't other Black men who are intelligent enough You know what I mean? And that's one of my pushbacks on the cultural side of the conversation, is that we only act as if, Dr. Horn, people act as if it's only like 3-4 black men, black women that you can go to talk. Come on, man. All this brilliance in our community and in this country, right? And we go to the same 4 to 5 voices to provide some insight. And it's like, we cutting ourselves off at the foot. You know what I mean? It's absolutely, it's just crazy. But we will see if the Democrats are going to take Mr. Blow's assertion serious. We will definitely see it. All right, Doc, for the final piece for your report, wanted to talk about this California wage increase. Take a look at this, folks. In the state of California, Governor Gavin Newsom is making some moves where he signed a bill that really provides protection for fast food workers in the whole industry. I mean, he's turning the industry on its head with this policy. And then at the same time is forcing the industry to level up to providing more of a livable wage for fast food workers that in 2023, that it may look like that fast food workers may get up to $22 per hour. Now, let me put this in perspective, as I'm a newcomer to the state of California. That ain't nothing. Where's my Cali folk at? No, my West Coast people, y'all know. $15 is poverty. $22, you might. And I'm just saying it, and this is serious. Like, people don't really understand this, Doc. But in the state of California, there are so many fast food companies, especially here in Los Angeles. There are so many fast food places where Black and Latino, mostly, I see Black and Latino are working. They need to be, and I mean, these are families, folks. These are people, and I'm talking about grown adults. These ain't teenagers. These ain't like 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, first job. 25, 30, 35, 40-year-olds working in the fast food industry. So, Doc, I want to get your take on this, and very quickly, hear what you have to say. Let me do this. Let me show you and Keenan, throw these up on the screen, please, bro. Let's talk about, let me share with you what this sweeping protections for California fast food workers is actually going to entail. For years, according to the governor, he said the fast food sector has been rife with abuse, low pay, few benefits, and minimum job security. Now, this is according to the bill, excuse me. The law provides for the creation of a fast food council made up of 10 members to establish sector-wide minimum standards on wages, working hours, and other working conditions related to the health, safety, and welfare of and supplying the necessary cost of proper living to fast food restaurant workers. The council will include fast food employees, worker advocates, franchisees, and government representatives. The legislation caps the 2023 fast food minimum wage at $22. The state minimum wage is $15 for businesses with 26 employees or more. After January 1st, 2024, the sector's minimum wage will be adjusted for inflation, capped at 3.5% annually. All right, I wanted to provide that context. But Dr. Horn, what's your take, sir? Is this good policy, this good business, good government?
I think it's a step forward. First of all, we should give credit where credit is due. This legislation would not have passed but for the activism of the Service Employees International Union, which has tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of members. It's one of the most powerful unions in the United States of America. It has a significant component of Black workers. And I dare say that as a result of this victory, the SEIU will probably be attracting more employees to its ranks, and it'll be like a snowball rolling downhill. They'll be gathering more momentum, more members, meaning more dues, which means they'll be able to organize more fast food workers, organize more janitors. And by the way, I think that fast food workers getting $22 an hour will also have impact on the sectors like janitors, for example, and the sectors that work in office buildings and empty the garbage pails after everybody has gone home. So this is a step forward. Obviously, as your comments suggest, we have a long way to go, but a trip of 1,000 miles begins with one step.
So what's the likelihood that we may see this create a ripple effect around the country? I mean, California, everybody knows, has a huge high cost of living, right? But then if we go to the East Coast, New York is another one. I'm hearing that places in the South, whether you're talking about in Texas and Houston, you're talking about Atlanta, and definitely in Florida and some of those highly populated areas of Florida, that the cost of living, like in Miami and other spaces, they're going up very, very high. So what do you think that this is going to create a ripple effect, or this is just going to be a California-based policy?
Well, like most progressive policy, I'm afraid to say that there will be a ripple effect in the blue states. There will be a ripple effect in New York State and Massachusetts, in Chicago and Illinois, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington. But in places, for example, where I'm sitting now, deep in the heart of Texas, it's going to take more than a California push by the SEIU to bring social progress to these shores.
Wow. All right, let me get some folks they want to check in on this one, Doc. McCall, good to hear from you, sis. You checked in and said the fast food sector is worth billions of dollars. They can pay their employees $20 plus an hour. I think so. I think so. So here's the other part about this, because even when we were having that and it's still an ongoing debate about $15 an hour, especially in the states of Maryland and other states around the country, that people are like, well, they're just working in fast foods. But what I learned about fast food industry is that there is a pathway to ownership. There is a pathway to upper management. There is a pathway to franchising, being a part of a franchise owner. So why do we hate on fast food so bad when they probably have one of the more structured pathways for a quote unquote upward mobility compared to other industries? Why do we hate them so much, Doc?
Well, I'm not sure if we do, but if there are those who do so, I think that it's a kind of class bias, which we oftentimes don't talk about, but which is certainly real. Perhaps it has something to do with the nutritional value or the lack thereof in terms of the food that they serve. And I should also mention what's happening at Starbucks. Technically not a fast food joint, but certainly in that general category. You've had major union organizing drives within Starbucks, and as a result, management has responded. You can work at Starbucks and get assistance in terms of going to college, just like some of the programs that you were just referencing. But once again, this does not come like manna from heaven. It comes as a result of organizing. It comes as a result of organizing that the SEIU, the Service Employees International Union, helps to typify.
So if this policy creates a fast food council, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, do you think this will lead to a fast food union? I mean, I know there's a national retailers association, but I'm wondering in terms for the employee side, for the worker side, is there a union for fast food workers?
The SEIU is trying to make an encroachment in that field, and I am sure that will be their ultimate goal, because with these workers making $22 an hour, if they don't have a union behind them, they're basically subject to being overrun and intimidated by management. And SEIU knows that more than most. Right.
Want Justice 8, you checked in. Good to hear from you. Sounds like you're a first-time watcher as well. We appreciate you, and welcome to the culture. You said, yeah, they will increase everything else to take away the pay increase. So we know how economics plays out. You studied this, Doc. We know how the economics play out. You raise wages, but then the cost of living gets higher, or your insurance kicks in. Oh, now that we raise, do you want insurance? Yes. Okay, well then that's going to lower your wages. Is this then the question then becomes, is this really a gain for the workers?
Well, I think it is. And I think it's also true that management will seek to raise prices. But then again, as one of the culture crew just mentioned, McDonald's. This is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They have units and franchises all over the world. And so I think that they can afford to take a chunk out of those lush profits that they annually reap to deal some wage increases out to their bedraggled workers without raising the cost of a salad or a hamburger to the rest of us.
You said it with such a straight face.
That's true.
I mean, that's cool. I mean, look, I'm all look. I actually love the idea of this policy, and I love the direction that the SEIU, the Service Workers Union, is trying to go and taking this. My hope is that something substantial is going to come out of this, like in terms of what's best for the workers. I'm telling you, Doc, what I'm seeing here, and not just in California, just across the board, we seem to still work from a vantage point of dealing with the effect and not going to the cause. So we say, oh, cost of living is high, so let's have a conversation about possibly, raising wages for the workers. Instead of saying, hey, cost of living is high, why are we charging? Why are we allowing developers to charge more in rent? Why are we allowing, the government? Like all of the reasons for why the cost of living is high. We're going on the wrong. I think we're approaching this the wrong way, because it doesn't bring those who are responsible for the high cost of living to account. So it's like, okay, I'm all for making sure that people have a livable wage. And I think that's contingent upon where you live. We cannot set a $15 an hour minimum wage across the board if the cost of living in Los Angeles is one thing versus Baltimore is another thing. You know what I mean? But we're still not getting to the cause, which is, well, why is the rent so damn high in these cities? Or why are companies allowed to pay, not to pay taxes when they are bringing in billions of dollars in profit? I'm not sure how we address that, Doc.
Well, you know that Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont has talked about a windfall profits tax.
Absolutely.
Your culture crew mentioned the billions in profits that are made by McDonald's and other corporations. We can tax those billions of dollars and then take those funds and apply it to subsidize healthcare, to apply it to subsidize daycare, which will allow parents to be more flexible in terms of working hours. So I think we know what is to be done. The question is organizing, and the question is political will.
Yep, absolutely. I could not agree with you more on that point. All right, let me just say this. Let me get Real Brooklyn in. My guy, Real Brooklyn, you said cost of living will always go up with more services and the advancement of technology. Cost of living will inevitably have to go up. It doesn't. I don't know, Real Brooklyn. I don't think it should. Like, people really are we talked about it on this show. People got 2 and 3 jobs. If families, if mothers and fathers and uncles and aunts and folks got to take, then who's watching the children? I mean, there's a domino effect in here. There's a domino effect. And cost of living shouldn't be so damn high. It really shouldn't be. People say, oh, well, because you live in it. I get all of that. I understand that. But at this end of the day, if the majority of people are only making a certain amount of money, we often talking about the squeeze of the middle class. If the majority of people are only making a certain amount of money, why are you trying to squeeze the middle class? That's not even talking about the low income. That's not even talking about those who are, quote unquote, working poor in this country. It's just too much to bear. Too much to bear. And then you have companies that are just reaping rich. They're not paying taxes. And then there are loopholes and all of that. The poor don't get no loopholes in taxes. Damn sure the middle class don't get no loopholes. Let us miss a couple of tax sessions, and you got some people knocking at your business. You knock some people at your door. It's just not fair. And people often talk about the goodness of capitalism. But at the end of the day, Doc, this thing is the weight of people's misery is going to break this country. The weight of debt, the weight of the poor and the middle class carrying this country along is going to break us. And I'm very concerned about that. I'm very concerned about that. What's your take?
You should be concerned. I mean, we began by talking about the homeless question in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is just a microcosm of what's happening in the United States of America. People become homeless not necessarily because of poor work habits or because of lack of intestinal fortitude. They become homeless because the rent is too high, the wage is too low, because of related problems in that general category. And as one of the culture crew members just referenced, if we're not alert to the issue of organizing and raising wages as a result, this homeless question will become even worse than it is in coming days, months, and years.
Absolutely. And Corina, you said this. Usually when they raise wages, they end up cutting down the hours too. Shaking my head, facts. And then you also added, and being single with no kids does not cut you a break. We are taxed to the max. No child tax credit. Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Horn, we appreciate the extra time you have spent with us today, sir. I thank you so much. And we look forward to reconnecting with you next week for the Horn Report. Thank you so much, Doc.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about a few things. Let's talk about where we are in the use of terminology in the classroom. I'm going to share with you what one teacher has done to change the language about so many issues in the classroom. And as a result of that, the consequences. Stay with me. That story is up next. Also in the next hour, we're going to talk about Black women in Hollywood. So we got a lot to discuss. So continue to stay tuned, continue to support us, and continue to look forward to some great conversations. And as I'm looking forward to your thoughts and comments right here on The Culture, here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Thank you for joining us for the second hour of the show. Great first hour as we checked in with Dr. Horn. Gave us a few more extra minutes of his time, so we greatly appreciate that as we talked about world affairs and domestic issues. Make sure y'all check us out on the replay and continue to support us in that space. Also, now, folks, we wanted to switch gears and talking a little bit about education as this is probably one of the biggest topics around the country right now. It's like, how do you educate children in light of all of these restrictions and censorship and just sensitivities that people have around how children should be taught in the classroom? Now, this seems to be an ongoing issue, especially in the state of Connecticut, as Connecticut parents in the school district of Southington are outraged at race and gender vocabulary words that was used on a teacher's worksheet. This is crazy, folks. The teacher created a worksheet to talk about issues, and parents got upset. Take a look, folks. And I'm going to just share with you a little bit of what would happen at Connecticut Southington High School. An English teacher, she attempted to educate her students on vocabulary words regarding race and gender. But according to the sources, there were a lot of angry parents, anti-CRT parents, gathered at the school board meeting to argue that these terms were, quote, off the wall, and seeing them again was frustrating as hell. Let me share with you what the terms were on this worksheet. The worksheet included terms like indigenous people. The worksheet included terms like transgender. The worksheet included terms like white privilege. The worksheet included terms like social justice. And parents were angry. Now, in Southington, if you have an English teacher who is trying to share, to try to take education to the next level, this should be a part of the conversation, especially since these words are already being used in national vernacular. But in Connecticut, it's a problem. So I'm so happy to be joined by an educator, a woman that I have great love and respect for. She's always pushing the boundaries of education. She is an educator herself. She's an activist. She's a screenwriter. And we're happy to have her back on the culture with us today. She is the birthday queen, Nira Muhammad. Nira, let's bring her in. She with us today? There she goes.
Hi.
Hey,
how are you? I'm great. How are you?
Good, good. First and foremost, happy birthday, Nira. Happy birthday.
Yes, my Jesus year.
Jesus year, 33. There it is. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this terminology that has gotten this English teacher in Connecticut in some some hot water, which, I mean, on our side of things is like, that's the terminology that people use. But in school districts, this is still a problem. This is still a problem. Talk to us about how much of a problem, not necessarily using the terms is, but how much of a problem is it that parents are getting upset that these terms are being used? Like, this is really, really fascinating.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a problem that parents are getting upset. I think it's more of a conversation to know why they're getting upset. Which words are upsetting to them, and why are they upsetting, or why are these words triggering? If you're upset about the word indigenous, that's a little questionable. I mean, like, I clearly don't understand why anyone would be upset about the word indigenous. But then I could see a parent being upset about the word transgender. And although I disagree with them being upset about that, I will want to break that down. Why? Why are you? And I think that's just me as an educator. I'm always curious about the why to things. And so, we all have the right to feel how we feel. You can't take that away from anyone. But my question is, why do you feel this way? And what can we do to make parents more comfortable? Is there a better way to introduce certain topics to students, whether it be through a letter being sent home to parents, just like kind of like giving them a heads up, like, hey, we're going to be discussing XYZ in the class. And I know that's very frustrating. And I know for teachers, that's something that we obviously don't want to do, because that's like something extra that's necessary for us to do. But I think that district wide is possible. I know before I taught sex ed to my 5th graders, I had to get a letter signed from parents, just letting them know that we were moving into this I can't even think right now. My mind is like all over the place. But just letting them know that we're moving into this unit. That in this unit, these are the things that we're going to be discussing. I know just the other day, my third graders teacher sent me a letter saying this is what they're going to be learning in the math unit. So I see that happening a lot more. Teachers are starting to send home those letters to families, just kind of giving them an idea of what is being discussed in the classroom so that you can also have conversations with your child at home. I do think that after this kind of Trump era, we're kind of moving into where people are, and parents especially, are a lot more vocal about their thoughts and feelings toward like CRT, race theory, and all those different topics. I think it's something that we need to have wider conversations about and really get to the root of why people don't want to have those conversations.
So let me just share with you a little bit of what some of the folks in Connecticut and the Southington, Connecticut community have to say about this. Now, this came from the Southington Board of Education Vice Chairman Joseph Bazuski. He is a Republican. And he said that this situation represented a teaching opportunity, to your point. But he said this, he said, to hear about the white privilege thing again, I'm tired of it. For this to be the talk out of all the crap that's going on, and this is it, it's frustrating as hell.
Because he's not.
Bro, you are the Board of Education Vice Chairman. And you're talking about, and this is the pushback, and this is why I think this is the problem, because you have children in these school districts ran by individuals who don't want to evolve, who don't want to be inclusive, who want to keep children in an isolated space, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you may not agree, and I'm just saying this to our online culture crew. Folks, y'all may not agree with how the culture is moving, whether it's with gender issues, race issues, economic issues, anybody, right? But you can't leave your children. You got to think about your children, God willing, are going to live longer than you are, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you prepare your children, because you're not there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, when they go out into the world and they see things, they hear things, their friends might be a part of families with two moms and two dads. How do you prepare them for that in a way that they can be respectful, they can acknowledge these things? Like you can't keep your children in a bubble to the point it's like, otherwise you can just tell them, when you come home from school, just stay in the house. Don't turn on TV. Won't listen to this. Like, how does that happen? What do you say to and I guess and from your vantage point, dear, looking at where you are, the conversations that you have with staffers and administrators and principals, how do you make sure that they evolve?
To be honest, Farajii, it's a work in progress. But again, like you mentioned, times have changed. You know, when we were growing up, these conversations were like, of course, they never happened in schools, but you do, as you mentioned, you do have to have these conversations. Case in point, my very first year teaching, one of my students, he had two moms, and his mothers were actually part of the founding members of the school. So they've literally been there since the very beginning. But long story short, and he came from a different racial background. I think one of his parents is a white woman, another one is a Jewish woman. And I think his father was like Arab because he was, conceived through whatever. Long story short, he had two moms, and I taught in a majority Black community, lower income community, and some of the Black boys in my class were making fun of him because of it. And you know, being a first year teacher, you're like, oh shit, how do I have this conversation? I had never experienced having to have the conversation of sexuality in school, especially with fifth graders. And so I just used the things that we've been taught as teachers, and I went to restorative practices. If anybody knows what restorative practices is, it's an opportunity to try to understand both sides of conflict. I want to understand the aggressor's point of view as well as the victim's point of view. Why were you the aggressor? What prompted you to act that way? And then, it really gives you a chance to kind of break down why different altercations happen. And so we got together as an entire class, and we had a beautiful restorative circle, and we never had that issue in our class again. But that is a really good example of why we have to have those conversations now. because this is not like when I was coming up. I never knew if any of my classmates had 2 moms or 2 dads. That really wasn't a thing. But now it is a thing, and it's a beautiful thing because those children come from homes with just as much, if not more, love. I mean, we really have to be inclusive. We're not in a time, in a space where we can just kind of like pull the wool over our eyes. These things are happening. These changes are happening. I had 3rd graders who identified as being a part of the LGBTQIA community, a 3rd grader. So we have to be open to having these conversations, but we need to start creating spaces where adults and teachers and educators can come together and have conversations, be it a forum, online, be it in person. You have to have those conversations because, again, parents are the children's first teacher. We always talked about it during the civil rights movement. Racism is, you're not born a racist. You're taught to be a racist. So it's no different than today. You're taught to be a racist. You're taught to be a misogynist. You're taught that your white privilege makes you better than whoever. You're taught those things. Those things are embedded in you. So we have to look at it from that perspective, from the people, the parents in that community, in that school district. What was their, what type of, conditions were they brought up under? You know what I mean? So we want to be like, no, be progressive, but you got to understand that this has been embedded in the parents for generations. And so it's going to really take some breaking down of different, on so many different levels. But you got to have conversations. I think the first place to start is having conversations.
All right, so I want to take some and I want to share with folks what another resident of the Southington community said about this whole issue, and then we want to hear directly from our culture crew. A local resident by the name of Pat Tavalosi went so far as to suggest that classroom monitors be used to make sure teachers don't impart the types of issues raised in the worksheet to their students. Pat said, we need to police the teachers bringing these ideologies that are just completely off the wall. Lady, what the hell are you talking about? Like, you literally want people to
educate someone like her. If you like, for some, like I had a coworker who told me that people have it harder in this country. I had to school her ass. I mean, it was crazy because it was that particular week where even over at HarperCollins, the Black employees were having a not a riot, of course, but they were having like a protest because they weren't receiving the same benefits. They weren't receiving the same promotions. They were just really, and I mean, just on so many fundamental levels, there are so many examples that we could pull of minorities receiving less opportunities. Come on. I just think that as educator, school people, the best way to handle ignorance is through education. Is it just me or I can't hear you, Farajii?
Oh, sorry, my fault. There we go. Okay. Let's get some response from our online culture crew because folks are checking in. Sandy, you said, I'd rather me being comfortable in teaching my kids all the words so when they go out, they aren't caught in ignorance. I get it. But let me just say this. And nearer to your point, if certain syllabus is sent out at the beginning of the year, that so parents can have an understanding of what they can expect, so that way they have the opportunity and the chance to talk to their children about this issue at the beginning before the teacher raises it up. So that way they can create a context for their own child and they're not looking for the teacher to create a context. So to your point, Sandy, yes. But some of the time, teachers don't send that information out beforehand. And so you're going to find that your child might come home and be like, you know what, today we learned about Black Lives Matter. And you didn't even talk about Black Lives Matter yet. You know what I'm saying? So for parents, when those moments come up, what do you advise for parents to do? Do you think that they should, run after the teachers and be like, wait a minute, hold up, and confront the teacher, or especially Black parents or even white parents? What should they do when the teachers get to those conversations before the parents can?
I mean, first of all, as you just witnessed, Farajii, some of these parents are going to think that teaching about Black Lives Matter is just wrong because they don't think that Black Lives Matter should even be a hashtag. It should be All Lives Matter. And that's problematic. Let's just start there. sometimes when you have these conversations beforehand, then you kind of put your own problematic ideas on your child, so to speak. And I'm not trying to be mean, but let's be real. Some people are just like, if you're pissed off about the word indigenous, that is something wrong with you. Okay. We moved from Native American, we moved to indigenous. If you have a problem with that, that's something wrong with you. So now if you have a parent that goes and talks to their child and they embed in their child's brain that the word indigenous is wrong, it is a bad word, whatever. And then you as a teacher, you're having this conversation with your students and they're, oh, well, my parents said the indigenous is stupid. So you see how that can also become like a problem too. Yeah. So it's like both sides of the coin can be really, really hard and really, really frustrating. Personally, I would rather be safe and send out a notice about certain conversations beforehand, just because I would not want the backlash of, oh, you were teaching my kid about, transgender issues. I mean, but this is real. This is the world that they're living in. We can pretend like these things aren't happening, but they are happening. And we have to move away from our own fear and our own ignorance. But again, this is something that to me should be done at a district level. The district can create
I would agree.
Something that is sent home to all parents about inclusivity, about all of these terms that may come up because they are important. And also send a letter home explaining why it's important to discuss these terms and explain that these lessons are not being taught to sway or persuade a child to think a certain way. They're to inform. And I think that's the big issue that parents have. They believe that teachers are trying to impose their own personal views. I don't do that. When I teach I don't celebrate Christmas, but I still teach about Christmas every year to my students. I'm not pushing my personal views on my students. Do I believe that some fat white man is going to come down the chimney? Hell no. But am I teaching kids Santa Claus isn't real? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to kill a child's fantasy. But at the end of the day, I still have to do my job. My job is to inform.
Absolutely. I want to share with what our online culture crew members are saying about this, dear, as we look at this. Take a look. All right, Willie, you said something that I want to bring up. Willie, you said the thing is kids are taught different things in different states. What effect will this have when kids go to college? Will some students be well-informed and some ignorant, generational impact? Fantastic point, Willie. I think that's an excellent point, sir. When they go out and you said college, when they go to if they're not going to high school, and if they go to high school is one thing, but when they branch out into the world, are they going to be considered global citizens? Are they going to be prepared for the world? Because, and I think, Nira, you've seen it.
My answer to that question is you choose the school that your child goes to. You put your child in a school that you think is going to prepare them. Take some ownership over your child and over their education. I knew
but here's the thing though.
That's what I'm saying to this parent, because I'm just saying, like, put your child, like, stop letting education control you and take control of the education in your child's life. Very early on, when I conceived my son, first of all, the first thing that I bought my kid when I found out I was having a baby were books. Those were the first things I bought. Before I bought him clothes, shoes, I bought him children's books. I was reading to my belly. Then I decided very early on, way before he even got to kindergarten, I was already thinking about, where am I going to send my kid? What is the curriculum? What are they teaching? What extracurriculars do they have? Is my child going to be competitive to look at larger colleges? Or is he only going to be able to look at, like, no offense, a Coppin? You know what I mean? Is my child going to be able to sit at the table? My son loves engineering. Is my son going to be equipped to, if he wants to go to MIT, will he be equipped to do that? That is on me as the parent to get him prepared for that. I don't look at it like it's on the teachers to get him prepared for that, because I choose the place that I put my son. I did my homework. I did my due diligence to make sure that I put my son in a school that I felt prepared him for that next level. And I want to say to parents of lower income families, you are at an advantage, actually, when it comes to putting your child in some of those schools, because they need you.
Yeah.
They need their federal funding. Yeah,
private schools. Yeah.
For sure. They
Absolutely.
need your Black and your brown bodies in their schools. I had a girlfriend, my son went to Friends School of Baltimore when we lived in Maryland. I met a woman whose child went to Friends School and she paid $100 a month. I don't want to tell you how much I had to pay, but I was looking at her like, God damn, I'm jealous. Don't ever sell yourself short thinking, oh, well, I don't make enough money to put my kid in private school. They have the money. They have the money. Look into other schools. Look into charter schools. Look at the school ratings. I mean, look at the reviews. I go through and I look at the reviews from parents. What do parents say? How responsive is the administration? What extracurricular activities do they have? If my son wants to get into fencing, does his school provide that? If my son wants to do robotics, does his school provide that? You have to know what, take ownership. Stop allowing the system to tell you what they're going to do with your child.
Facts. Let me share a couple of more thoughts from our crew here. Salamatu More, you checked in. Good to hear from you. You said, I feel that if you don't want kids to learn these things, homeschool them then. Homeschool them. It is so frustrating as a teacher. Absolutely. That's a part of what you just said, taking ownership of the education. But even in homeschool, look, folks, you can't deny what's on the outside of your front door.
Nope.
You see what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, your child still has to go out and engage in the world in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. Right? So it's better, even whether you homeschool them or you send them to a place, you got to have those conversations. And I'm saying an educated, balanced, highly raised, highly conscious conversation about how they go out into the world. That's the big job of parents, right? We're trying to create global citizens here, right? We're trying to put our children in places and spaces where they're deemed valuable and productive. And look, we gotta do this. And to your point, Nira, when we look at this situation of wanting the educational system to babysit the children in every element of education, on every facet that the school needs to be responsible for. And the only thing that parents need to do is drop their children off and pick them children up, feed them, clothe them, and then go through the whole routine the next day. No.
Absolutely not. I can tell you every single year that I have taught, and I've been doing this for a while now, the kids who come out on top are the kids whose parents take ownership of their education. They are the kids whose parents give them extra spelling words or vocabulary words that outside of the classroom. They are the parents that are taking their kids to the science center, port discovery. They're the parents that are getting their kids in the coding classes and a second language instrument. I mean, they are the parents that are coming up and actually having the conversations with the teacher, volunteering in the classroom, asking if any extra materials are needed, if time is needed. Hey, Miss Muhammad, do you need me to come in and cut some papers for you or staple? Or those kids whose parents really, and I'm not saying that you all have time to do that. I'm not saying that. But just having conversations, it can start with just a conversation. And I know sometimes you ask your kid, how was school today? They're like, it was good. Don't accept that. What was good? Ask them, what did you do in math today? What did you do in science today? What resource did you have today? Really, really engage them. Tell me something funny that happened at school today. Tell me something silly tell me something that was hard for you today, or something that was super easy or that you were proud of. Really be specific when you ask them questions, because I guarantee you that when you start asking them those questions, it's going to kind of be like, it was okay. But by the 20th day, they're like, Mom, so guess what happened in school today? They're going to start telling you. And then you can get more engaged. Or when your parent, when my son's teacher sends home that letter of what the unit for that math, that math unit is, I need to make sure that I'm reading that. I need to make sure that I can actually have a conversation with my child about that. Even if it's a brand new concept, there's a little box normally on there with a couple of vocabulary words. Pick one of those words, pull it up on your phone, pick one of the words. Tell me about place value. Just whatever. And I'm just like making that about the fly, but just become more engaging. Engage with your kids. Before you know it, they are going to be off and in college, and they're going to be starting their own families. The time that we actually have with our kids is really, really short in the big scheme of things. Enjoy it. I know it's hard. I get stressed out. Work is stressful. Sometimes I don't even want to parent my own kids, but you gotta kind of work past that as best as you can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to shift gears into another part of the conversation, from talking about race and gender issues in the classroom to looking at race and gender in Hollywood. Now, this past Emmys, the 74th annual Emmy Awards award celebration, there were a number of Black women that were awarded for their creative talents. And we wanted to talk to Culture Crew member Nira Muhammad to get her take about the impact of Black women in Hollywood. They're having that conversation. And I got something for Trends Post and Doing the Most. So stay with us, folks. We got a lot to get to in the final few moments of today's show of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks. The 74th annual Emmy Awards happened this past week, and today we wanted to talk about the issue of Black women in Hollywood, as Black women are continuing to blaze the trail for creative genius and excellence. Now, a couple of the big winners from the Emmy Awards were Quentin Bronson, who won her Emmy for Best Writer, for Best Pilot for an outstanding comedy series in Abbott's Elementary. She created that. We saw Zendaya win for her role in Euphoria. We saw Shirley Ralph getting her first Emmy for outstanding lead in a comedy series for Abbott's Elementary. So we're seeing some things different, but will this continue to happen through Hollywood? So we're going to check back in with Culture Crew member, who is a screenwriter, Nira Muhammad, to get her take on where she sees the industry going for Black women. This is very, very interesting.
It's exciting.
And I think it is exciting. And this is what I'm starting to see more and more of. Like every couple of years, and I'm literally saying every 2 to 3 years, we we praise a Black woman creator for her contribution to the culture, to the Hollywood space, right? Like we've praised Shonda Rhimes now, right? Of course, Shonda Rhimes has continued to grow and blow up and do things. I haven't seen too much praise, but I know it's out there. Courtney Kemp, we praise her. We certainly praise Issa Rae, right?
Yeah.
You are a screenwriter. You are working on on a number of projects. Yes, I'm putting it out there. I'm putting you out there a little bit, right? It's a beautiful thing because Black women need to tell these stories. Do you think that Hollywood is really opening the path for Black women to tell these stories, whether it's a comedic story or a dramatic story, whatever the case may be? Do you think that Hollywood is ready? Are we ready for this?
I mean, we see it happening. So yeah, either they better get ready because we're taking over.
We're coming.
But I think we are. I think Black women, we are extremely creative. I think women in general are creative. And one of the things that I've got to learn during this time that I've been studying film at through this program at NYU is that women in general have not really had a really, really strong footing in Hollywood, you know, on a large scale. So just in general, like in this past like 10 years, in the last 20 years, just to see this movement of more and more women getting director roles and writing, and I mean, it's just really beautiful. As a screenwriter, as an aspiring screenwriter, I am very excited by it. And I'm really, really excited for all the women, Black, white, whatever, who are finally getting to tell their stories, because too often stories were never told from the perspective and point of view of women. And so I'm just happy that we finally get our voices to be heard and we get to tell stories from our vantage point and from our point of view. It's not the same. So I'm
all right. So here's what happened. And Keenan, I want you to play the video. This is coming from The Root of them, you know, pretty much doing a little summary of what each of these Black women have said during the course of their of winning their Emmy Award. Check this out, folks. Looks like we just having just a little bit of a difficulty, and Keenan just let us know when you're ready to play that video. But it's interesting to say the least. My concern, and I, you know, I'm wholeheartedly in full agreement with your view of that Black women are coming. That y'all got lots of, I mean, y'all got more than lots of the stories to tell. My concern is always this: how do you prevent Black women from becoming a trend? How do you bring some level of humanity to the stories and to the narrative of the Black women in America? How do you do that?
You know, from my personal, I actually touched on this in my script. I think I've gotten past the point of caring. If I'm a trend, so fucking what? It's about time we as Black women are a trend, because we've been pushed to the back burner for so long. We've been invisible. We have been the nurturers. We've been the moms. We've been all of that stuff for so long. We've been in the kitchen. We've been ironing clothes, but we've been creating, and we've been nurturers, and we've been healers, and just creative and thinkers and tinkers. And I don't care. If I'm trending, good. Maybe it'll put some money in my pocket. Maybe it'll get my, you know, get my show picked up. It is what it is. Sometimes you just got to ride that wave. You know what I'm saying? Like, It is what it is. When it is your time, it is your time. If it's Black women's time, so be it. Praise us. Let us shine.
I hear you. All right, let's get this video. My man King Keenan got it together. What'd you say?
I said, no, but I hear you, because I was feeling like that too. Like, are we just trendy? No, I mean, but now I got over it. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. Let us be trendy.
Hey, look, I get it because we see it so much, you know what I mean? And I just, you know, the story of Black women is not just encapsulated in pain and struggle. There's great joy, there's great love, there is great power in Black women, right? I mean, and
had me pitching my script, Farajii, because I'm like, that's like the whole.
We didn't go that far.
I'm joking with you. I'm just like, I just think that's so important. Like, as a writer, as a Black woman writer, that was important to me. I was so tired of seeing the cliche Black woman on TV. I was tired of seeing Black women that did not represent me at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though we had shows like Insecure, we had shows like Harlem, and you know, I can go on and on down the line. I do not.
Those are pretty new.
Yeah, from the new shows, I don't see myself in those shows.
Yeah. I mean, I think
I wanted to write something that wasn't just the cliche Black women. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sick of that. I'm sick of us being portrayed a certain way in television too, and even from Black writers. even from Black female writers. So I'm challenging them, write us differently. I'm so sick of y'all writing us in the same way all the time. Like I'm kind of just tired of it. So, and I think that's what made Abbott Elementary so great. It was so different, especially coming from a Black woman.
Absolutely. And it made me think when you said, we seeing these shows, I'm remembering, and I'm going to take it way back for everybody. Y'all remember Living Single, right?
Oh,
like Living Single, 90s classic. For Black women. I mean, people. I haven't even gone as far as to read, and this is, and I didn't make the connection until it was said. People are like, "Oh no, Living Single was what brought Sex in the City into fruition," and I was like, "Oh dang, you got 4 Black women living in New York talking about their life, and it's doing it in a sitcom. Then you got Sex in the City."
Our girlfriends too. Like I love Girlfriends. Like that was my show.
Yeah.
I mean, Living Single, I watched because my mother watched it, but I was very, very young when Living Single was like at its height. But I started getting a little bit older when Girlfriends came out, and I loved that show. I loved Half and Half. To be honest, I feel like I actually connect more with the Black women that were written in the 90s than I do with the Black women that are written today.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm like,
wow. Okay.
Like I genuinely couldn't find anyone that I connected with. Like even in Insecure, I'm not Issa. I'm definitely not Molly. I'm definitely not Kelly. And I'm definitely not a Tiffany. I wouldn't even be friends with Tiffany. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like her character was somebody I was like, would irritate me. I hate that stuck up Black girl. But none of them really were me, you know? And I was like, I want to write a show that fits more of my life, my girls, like our story.
And that's why it's important.
P Valley, another one. P Valley. I'm nothing like any of the women on P Valley. I can't even say this. I wish. She's beautiful. Oh my God. She has me
Big
like
shout out to
my
P
resistance
Valley.
band. Like I'm, using my resistance band trying to get a little booty because I can't afford to buy one.
Wow. All right, look, I want to play this video of what happened at the 74th annual Emmy Awards that happened the other night where black women got some honors and love and respect. But check out what Shirley Ralph, what Quentin Bronson and Zendaya had to say. Here we go.
An endangered species, but I sing no victim song. I am a woman, I am an artist, and I know where my voice belongs.
I want to say thank you to ABC, to Disney, to Fox, and to Warner Brothers. It takes that many people to make a television show. I need to say thank you to Justin and Patrick, my co-showrunners, for believing in a story from 4 years ago and thinking that it would make a good TV show.
You know, my greatest wish for Euphoria was that it could help heal people. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who has shared their story with me. I want you to know that anyone who has loved Aru or feels like they are Aru, I want you to know that I'm so grateful for your stories, and I carry them with me, and I carry them with her. So thank you so much.
When I was a little girl, all I wanted to see was me in the media. Someone fat like me, black like me, beautiful like me.
If I could go back and tell little Lizzo something, I'd be like, you gonna see that person, but bitch, it's gonna have to be you.
All right, we thank the Roots for that. So what do we take from that? There was certainly some there was some big speeches that came out of there. Quinta Brunson, who is the writer and creator of Abbott Elementary. Before her moment, Jimmy Kimmel laid on the floor. People said that took away, as you saw in that video, took away from the moment of her win. I can understand why. Zendaya, he was basically saying like he was just trying to like lay the path. Like I don't know what the hell Jimmy Kimmel was thinking. But
I would have made a joke like, are you trying to catch a peek, Jimmy? I think you're trying to catch a peek. You know me, I'm always like
something.
What are you doing, bro? Get up.
But some people really felt like Shirley Ralph's singing was not an ode to Black women or ode to Black culture. Even some of our folks in our online culture crew this, and she was more like a step and fetch it than a woman getting an award.
The first moment that I saw it, I was like, what the hell is she doing? Why she's singing.
Yeah.
But I don't care. I feel like that was her moment. That was her first Emmy, and it was an emotional moment for her. And it was her win. And that's all that matters. You're blessed to, like, she's blessed to even have been on that stage and to accept that award. And maybe she had a speech planned, and maybe that was what came over her in that moment. I don't know, but I don't want to shame her or take away from her moment, because that was what came out of her, and that came from her heart, and it was an emotional moment. I mean, I wouldn't have done it, but I'm not her.
Right.
I think she's beautiful, and I'm so happy for her.
Lizzo, of course, has always been the target for a number of conversations, but Lizzo has accepted herself, and when people think about body positivity, she serves as the key example of a woman who has fully accepted herself. What's your take of her?
I personally think Lizzo is a great performer. I think that she's beautiful. I think that she needs to stop using the big girl narrative, because I don't think that should matter. I think that you're a singer, you're a performer. That's it. Stop always, like, I don't know. You don't have to put your size under a microscope. I'm not putting my size and my body under a microscope. That's not who I am. And I just think that it's kind of annoying, especially when she's like, oh, like, we've seen pictures of Lizzo when she wasn't fat. Like, Lizzo has not always been fat. She's gotten fatter over the years. And so for her to always like kind of use this like fat, I just don't like, Lizzo, we don't care. Like, you're okay, whatever. Like, they're fat, they're skinny people, they're tall people, they're short people. Like, I don't care. I just think you're a great performer. I think you're a beautiful Black woman, and I think you're a great performer. I could care less about your weight. I don't care about your body. I think you're beautiful. That's it. That's the whole story.
But some people tend to believe, and this was one of the things. I mean, he's the last person to say something now, considering the latest controversy with him. But Ari Spears, yeah, you know what I mean, went in on her about her body and stuff, and it's like,
why?
And see, look at God don't like ugly Aries.
Nope.
That's what. And guess what? You went in on that sister, and guess what happened though? Next week.
I'm sorry, but Lizzo is beautiful. Like, she may be a larger woman, but that woman is beautiful. I think that Lizzo is like, her face card doesn't deny, period. Her talent, her work ethic, it doesn't matter. You don't have to like her. You don't have to agree with her. Do I agree with Lizzo constantly like trying to play on the fat girl thing? No, it's annoying. I don't even care. I just like the fact that I think she's beautiful, and I think that she's talented. That's it.
Absolutely. Let me just get some comments here from our team, our crew. Jawan, good to hear from you, sis. You said Shirley Ralph's song acceptance speech was beautiful.
It was.
Yes. I hear you, Jawan.
I wasn't expecting that, but it was beautiful.
I wasn't expecting it either. I heard about it before I saw it, and then I was like, well, why is everybody people like, oh, she blew the... And then I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. But you know what? And I think you really, and I think
I don't feel like I'm an endangered species though. I don't think of myself as that.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. That was an interesting and choice of words. You know what I mean?
But I'm also a very literal person.
Yeah.
So when I think of endangered species, I'm like, we're, looking at the numbers, we're
Right.
not. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm not a bee.
Right. No, not at all. Not at all.
I'm not endangered. You know what I mean? Like, again, people are constantly trying to play on certain narratives to me.
And see, that's why I think
and
it's
it was just
important.
again playing to that narrative. And I'm just like, just take your damn award. Like,
right. No. But see, that's why I'm always kind of concerned about the pushback, because it's like we in our culture right now, Nira, and you've seen it, and we talk about it a lot. People want to become symbols. I feel like, right?
It's like,
people
oh, you know who did it? Babe,
for this identity politics.
Was it Jesse Williams when he did the "You are just because you're real doesn't mean you're not magic"? Remember that?
Right.
That was like the big acceptance speech that was like retweeted and everybody kept saying it. And now I feel like maybe you're right. Like people are trying to like live up to that moment, because I feel like that was like one of those really, really big award show moments in the Black community. You know what I mean? And now everyone else is trying to like, how can I come out and have my speech be just as impactful or go as far or become just as viral? Because nowadays even celebrities want to be viral. Everyone wants to be relevant. I don't think that she seemed like the type of woman that would do that, though.
No. I think, I mean, look, Shirley Ralph, if you notice her career, and this is a big shout out to her, real talk.
Yeah.
She's been around for at least 30 years. At least.
I know her as Moesha, like from Moesha.
That's
like,
what I'm saying. She's been around for so long, right?
Yeah.
And you think about all the projects, even in Moesha. You know what I mean? You think about all the projects that she's done. She's been around for forever. So she is a legend in the game.
It's just always so classy.
So I don't think of her like, but I'm just saying, like, to your point, I think the sentiment about her speech was exactly what you spoke on, which was that was her moment. That's how she expressed it. That was her first Emmy, y'all. Like, do y'all know how? I want y'all to put this in perspective. Imagine working at a job for 30 years and then finally getting an award for a great job. Can you imagine? I mean, look, none of us in this day and time, in this generation, we're not planning to work at no damn job for 30 years.
School just started. My son already talking about he's trying to be the student of the month. I'm like, boy, school just started.
30
but
years.
How can I make student of the month, Mom? Like, be kind.
Exactly. So imagine being doing something for 30 years and you getting very little recognition, very little award for it. My black ass be singing too.
You gonna come dance and all that.
But here's another part. She wasn't singing because she was just doing a great job. She was singing because she was also part of a show created by a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
That speaks volumes. That's volumes. Yep. So I understand the joy. I understand the joy.
That woman gives me so much hope just because she came out and got a freaking Emmy for her pilots.
Fact.
Her pilots. Like,
Fact.
That is so inspiring to all the Black writers. I don't care. I think it's just inspiring to writers in general. If you're a writer, you know how hard it is to break into this industry. And I think even like now, in some ways, it's becoming so much harder because of the fact that you're competing with social media. You're competing with being Insta famous. I mean, I really was told, like most recently in my pursuit of like trying to get my script sold and finding an agent, that I need to get my following up on social media. I need to post more videos. I need to make more reels. I need to make more lives. And I'm like, but I'm a fucking writer. I just want to write.
Right.
I'm not trying to be Instagram famous. No one's checking for the writers of the men who wrote Game of Thrones to see what their following is on social media. No one cares. Like,
that's definitely
as a writer, I want to be taken serious as a writer. I don't want to have to be a social media phenomenon to be taken serious.
Absolutely. Who's schooling me right now? Is this Marcina Faith Albert? Marcina, you checked in and said Diana Reeves, Endangered Species. It's an actual song. There you go.
Oh yeah, I knew that was an actual song.
I knew that. I was like, where'd she get that from?
Oh yeah.
Marcina, I appreciate you for putting that into the chat, schooling us, schooling me. I don't know about the rest of y'all. Schooling me.
Oh yeah. You thought she just freestyled that joint?
No, I knew it came from somewhere, but I just like, where did it come from? You know what I'm saying? But I get it. I get it.
It should be the church. I felt like I was either in the Underground Railroad or at church on Sunday.
Somewhere. But let me tell you something.
That's what it gave me.
Check this out. This goes to, did you see the response from the white audience members? They were taking the church.
That's when I was like, okay. And that's why it's important, because it's not about influencing us. It's sometimes about influencing others.
Woo. Woo.
We can't have real progress if white people don't progress.
Woo. And if you know what, that's it right there. That's it. Like, because here's the thing. We often have the conversation about progress moving forward without putting the accountability on them.
Yeah.
Like black folks, we will make the progress. We will, but they got to do something. Y'all got to do something.
We know daggone well no black people went up to the school and was like, why did y'all write this word indigenous? Black people didn't do that shit.
No,
it wasn't black people.
No, not at all.
So that is strategic marketing. Who do we need to reel in? Who do we need to educate?
Mm-hmm.
That's where we need to place our focus.
Absolutely.
On the people who are placing these barriers. They are those barriers that we want to knock down. We gotta go after the people that are placing the barriers.
That's it. That is absolutely it. All right, let me get a couple more folks real quick. Ming Lee, Natasha Savage. Oh, Natasha Sir, excuse me. You said only black actress on Designing Women put some specter on her name, talking about the great Shirley Ralph. I remember, I forgot she did Miss Designing Woman. Damn. Let me tell y'all something. I used to watch that show with Meshack Taylor. I used to watch that show. I don't know why my mom or my grandma, somebody in my house made me watch Designing Women, y'all. I remember that show. If y'all ain't never seen Designing Women, that's a classic. But you're absolutely right, Ming Lee. Thank you so much. Janae, you said it's been 30 years since another black woman won that award. That's what she meant. Facts. I get it. You're right. Real Brooklyn, any woman who has class and elegance is an endangered species. Wow. I'm feeling that. I love that. Zoe, you checked in and said Shirley Ralph has been in the game since the 70s. She was Dina Jones in the Broadway Dream Girls. Yep. There it is. So we understand, folks. Look, when you got legends coming up and they get their flowers while they're living, we should put some spec on their name. We should honor them for the great work that they're doing. All right, let me just.
Farajii, that lady says she's an endangered species. Do me a favor, Google what an endangered species is. That's all I'm saying. Just Google that, please. You know, I dislike when people use terminology that just does not fit. I'm just saying. Just Google it.
Okay, there it is.
We're not endangered.
Look. We're going to take a quick pause. When we come back, Trends, Posts, and Doing the Most. Stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back. It's time for Trends Post the Door the Most. I'm laughing and smiling because I already know how this part of the conversation gonna go, y'all.
Oh boy.
Already know. All right, so let's talk about football. Let's talk about music and hip hop. Let's talk about T.I. All right, so let me just. All right, yo, here we go. What's trending right now? T.I. speaks out after Atlanta Falcons debuted their new sports anthem from Nigerian superstar Rotimi. Y'all know Rotimi from Power and other shows. Yeah. They use Rotimi's song called Rise Up as their anthem instead of local Atlanta artist, singer. So the T.I. responds to them making this decision by asking a question, bruh, who approved that? Now, this was debuted before their season opening game on Sunday, this past Sunday. It was basically used as a way to get fans hyped. However, T.I. decided to put out an 11-minute video on Instagram criticizing the Falcons making the decision to use Rotimi instead of using local Atlanta artists such as himself, Quavo, 2 Chainz, Jeezy. And he said, bruh, who approved that? Who's sitting in these meetings? He said, this is what T.I. said. He said, he's a brother talking about Rotimi. He said, we F with him, but bruh, we have so much culture, so much talent from the city, so many diehard Falcon fans that happen to be A-list talent in the city. Who did you call, Atlanta Falcons? Who did you call? And he wondered. He said, why didn't you call me?
I'm sorry. Like, did they already clear all the charges and stuff from the whole sex trafficking thing with T.I.? Or was that still like, what happened with that? Because, see, you know what my issue with T.I., you know, this man thinks that he like everything needs to pass through him the same way his daughter's OBGYN appointment needs to pass through him. Nobody cares. It's not your place. What money did you put up that gave you a seat at the table to have any voice or to any in terms of any decision making? I don't like T.I., so let's just it's really hard for me to even get on board because I have such a disdain for T.I. because of he's such a misogynistic asshole, if you ask me, because that's the way that he's portrayed himself. And this just like digs it even deeper. Like, who does he think he is? Rotimi is great. I think that it's really great to highlight different cultures and people from everywhere. If that's the case, I'm sorry to say it, but Baltimore don't have no real good performers because that Baltimore rap is not something I would even want to hear at the beginning of a Ravens game. No offense, but I also have a 9-year-old son, and Baltimore rap is always about selling drugs and having the bird flu. Where's the lie? You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Every song got something about a bird flu, whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, we should be highlighting Black excellence, period. Why the hell would you get upset about them playing a Black man's song? Especially when it's a very uplifting song.
But they're not from
Jeezy. You know me. I love me some Jeezy. I love Gucci Man. I love Summer Walker. Summer Walker is from Atlanta. I love a lot of Atlanta artists. But come on, man, let everybody have their moment.
Yeah.
Don't be Kanye West. Don't steal somebody's moment. And I think Rotimi, and I think I'm going so hard because I think Rotimi is such a sweet guy. I like following him on social media. He's extremely funny and just like he seems like an all around just good dude. And I just really, really think that was like such a great moment for him. T.I., sit your ass down. Leave that black man alone.
Yeah, I mean, there's something. What's the best word to describe? Like gatekeeper.
That, and I'm tired of this American versus African thing. I am so tired of it.
Yeah.
We are part of
here's the thing.
one diaspora.
Here's the thing, right? And I'm so happy you brought that up. Because like Rotimi, I mean, we've seen collaborations from
like
Tim's. We've seen
they're finally coming
Sean
up.
Paul. Y'all remember Sean Paul? Sean Paul.
Yeah, but Farajii, like we can't name that many, African celebrities like that have made it in terms of music. We just named a very few, and those are new. Wizkid, new on the scene in terms of having the stage that he has now. Tim's, same thing. Rotimi still to me doesn't really have a really large following in terms of music, but we have got to stop with this African versus Black American. Like we are all one people.
That's a great point. That's a great point. I think that also it opens the it creates this thing where, again, when we're talking about gatekeepers of hip hop, right? Gatekeepers of Black music and culture, that we don't want to be in this space because guess what? That's the exact thing that white people have done to us, right? And we talk about in other settings where you talk about politics or education or even in religion. It wouldn't be an African American or AME church.
Yeah.
If Black people were part of the Methodist church. You know what I'm saying? Those things. So we got to be very careful. Now, that's why I think T.I. is doing the most on this one. We got to be very careful that we don't mimic the same tendencies and behaviors of those who have oppressed us, right? We get into a position of power. We get into a position of influence. Now we want to gatekeep. Like, come on, let's be honest, bro. Let's be honest. 2 Chainz,
so irrelevant. T.I. is so irrelevant to me.
Like Outkast. These are artists who have dominated the Atlanta music scene for years.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like they are solidified, bona fide hip hop legends. Nobody can take anything away from these guys.
Farajii, have they not played any of those other, rappers' music at the football games before? I'm pretty sure they have. I mean, because, you and I, we both enjoy going to NFL football games, and it's lit. I mean, it's lit.
I'm with you.
I've heard Jeezy in other places at the stadium.
Let Rotimi live. Man.
That man just had a baby. Look, he had a baby. He got to support. Like, let that man live.
T.I., please. Like, here's a case in point. We just saw in the Super Bowl, LA, with Dr. Dre, Snoop, all them people, right? Legends. Again, legends. And then nobody said,
why you
when Jay-Z put together, nobody said, wait, wait, hold up. They could have brought Exhibit. They could have brought a host of local artists.
Yeah, they could have. Mary J. Blige is not from California.
Who?
And Mary J. Blige, when she performed, it was like a talent thing, but they also included other people. Like, Eminem is not from California, but he obviously was influenced by Dr. Dre and others. But Mary J. Blige is not. Hell, Dante Winslow, who was the composer, is from Baltimore. So, I mean,
like if we start getting, I think this is a slippery slope, which is why I brought it up, and that's why I say, yo,
so now you can only have your music played if you're from that place. T.I., is that what we're getting at? Atlanta's only allowed to play music.
Come on, T.I., like Jeezy, you, Outkast, 2 Chainz haven't been eaten. Y'all haven't been eaten from Atlanta.
Exactly. It's just sad. But it just goes to show.
Rick Ross lives in Atlanta now.
All this is about This is about trying to stay relevant. T.I., what music has T.I. come out with? He just wants to be relevant. He's one of those people that every 2 to 3 years comes out and says some off the wall shit to get himself back in headlines. I think that's what it is.
Brother.
He was like, anybody been talking about me for a while. What can I do? I'm gonna start some shit. That's what he did.
Come on, bro. That's what he did. Come on, T.I. You go on an 11-minute rant on this, bro. I think you doing way too much, bro. You doing way too much. Nobody got to call you.
Held down expeditiously.
Let me just tell y'all. Let me just school y'all. This is a prime example of how business is done. Nobody got to ask. No company is going to call out to no individual to ask their permission to make a decision about something that's in the company's interest. They're not doing it.
Nah.
If you think that that's happened, please, do you really think the NFL is going to give a damn?
Hey, Farajii, listen, that man ain't Jay-Z. Listen. That's probably the only person they might be like, hey, Jay, so what do you think? What do you think? It's not even still like they're asking for permission. They might ask, like, what do you think? Because we trust your judgment. But T.I., you ain't no Jay-Z, homeboy. You're not a Jay-Z. So sorry. I'm a huge Jay-Z fan too, so I'm always going.
And this is sad because here's the sad piece. Going back to your piece as we wrap up, the sad piece is it opens up the door for division, right, among Black artists. Where Black artists need, and if you don't need Black artists to come together at any other time, this is the time for Black artists to stand together. T.I., you should have went on that 11-minute rant and said, you know what, big shout out to my Nigerian brother, Rotimi.
Yeah.
You holding it down for the continent, bro. Look, we got to do some songs together, get your voice out there more. What you took is just the Negro approach. Nobody called me. Nobody asked me. I asked man, come on, bro. That is not good for the culture, man. I feel
like that is all he does now. Anytime you hear from T.I. at this point, I feel like it's something.
That's sad.
It's like, dude, like what Jay-Z say in that song? I feel like Farrakhan.
I feel like Farrakhan talking to Mike Wallace. Y'all need to keep quiet. Come on, man. You're not good for the culture right now with that.
Ever.
Not good. That's not good. So I brought it up, but man, look, this is just, folks, let's just know that when moments like this get up, and then look, T.I., if you want to say something, I don't care if y'all tweet this video to that brother. I have him on here, and I will say the exact same thing. It's not good for the culture. Some of y'all probably don't even know who Rotimi is until you see his face.
Power. That's how he was power. He's known for power.
He was on Power.
He was
Dre. He got another show out actually right now. He's on another show. But the man gotta live. And look, we gotta create a space for our brothers across the waters, for our sisters across the waters that's trying to break into this part 100%. Of the country with their music, man. We rocking to Tim's, we rocking to Wizkid, we rocking to who's my guy? Isn't he from there? What do you call it? He did a song. The what kind of man was it? Oh my gosh, forgot the brother's name. But there's so many great artists that are.
I love it. I love to see like our diaspora just constantly evolving. We're constantly coming together, constantly just making dope music. When I heard Tim's with Brent Fayez from DC, PG County, I was like, yo, like how dope is that? I think it's amazing for the culture just to intermingle our different sounds. T.I.'s a mess, but that's all I'm gonna say about that.
All right, but Marcina checked in. Marcina, you look, you said we pay to go to the Falcons games. We want to hear hometown people for the anthem. I hear that, but I mean, it's the Falcons' choice.
The fact that they even think about that is kind of low-key weird to me. Like, I just want to hear my favorite artist. I don't give a damn where you from.
Look, let me tell y'all something. We've been to Ravens games. I want to hear good music that's going to pump me up. I don't want to hear music that's talking about smacking women, selling drugs, and shooting people at a game.
I'm sorry. I just want to hear good music, period. And don't get me wrong, I love all music. I will listen to country. I listen to rap, ratchet, trap. I listen to classical music. I love jazz. I love all music. But at the end of the day, I'm going to support it all. I don't give a darn where you're from. Y'all got to, it's so silly. Y'all sound, I'm sorry, sister, but y'all sound really, really silly. Talking about it got to be somebody from your hometown. That is just silly. It should be great artists from wherever. And if you want to stay in that little bubble, in that little box, honestly, I feel sorry for you.
PM26, you say we have to be the gatekeepers of our culture. Too many culture vultures stealing our stuff. He's black. Culture. He's black.
I think I've had enough for one day, Farajii.
What culture? Who's stealing the culture?
He's a black man. That is a black man.
He's a black man. He grew up in America. He got Nigerian roots.
Oh my God, the ignorance is just digging at the ignorance hole deeper.
He's black. Rotimi is black, folks. His peoples are from Nigeria. Just like some of us, our people might be from Haiti
or do something. Farajii, look, Farajii, your number one thing is Nigerian. When we did our,
when I did my
let
me say it very quickly. My people, they said the most of my people is from Nigeria. That's the number one place. They say based upon my ancestry, Nigerian roots.
I don't really want to tell you my results, but
Nigeria.
I was like, what? This ain't my roots.
Come on, folks. Look, let's keep it. Let's keep it real. Let's keep it real.
This is just not even. I mean, again, this just goes back to the colorism. The division. We're constantly dividing ourselves, and it's just so sad. At the end of the day, when that black man had the same issues of race as any other black man, like they don't give a damn.
He's so embedded in the culture, it's not even funny.
Right? They're not gonna be like, Rotimi, you are not from here. I'm gonna, it's just so silly to me. Like I just don't understand. Silly, like it's so annoying. It's like whatever.
It's super silly, man. Look, let's not get into the space. Like, and it's cool. We can disagree, but I'm just saying, let's have some logical rules of engagement to disagree, because the man is black. The man is like, if we get mad at black people whose families are rooted in other parts of the country, then guess what? We might as well I'm gonna just turn the camera on, because we're all connected to someplace else.
I'm actually kind of surprised.
Let's not even get into that place. We're all literally connected to someplace else. You can't tell me that all of your family is from America. Oh, I'm pure Black American. Are we in that space now? When it comes to music?
Shout out to the indigenous community.
Like, come on, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let our culture. There's no culture vulture here. There's no cultural appropriation here.
I know is a black man. I know the indigenous community right now is probably like, really?
No, we can't do this. We can't do this. T.I., you're doing the most, but we can help you with that. We can help you. We can help you. Take down the video, man. Take down the video from your timeline, bro.
I wanted to say real quick, what I love about your show, truly, is that you really do rate, like, it's fun, it's informative, but you really are raising the consciousness of people. And I love that this is a show by us, for us. And just in this conversation right now of like looking at our own issues under a microscope, I love that. I think the only way for real change to come about is to really give yourself and our people an open and real honest look at even where we're messing up ourselves, and where we're like, because to even be upset that, another Black person performed that wasn't from your city, you got to really question yourself. Why does that bother you? Why does seeing another Black person perform even bother you? Think about that, because that in itself just speaks to a whole other level. And as you guys can see, it's basically time for me to go. Are we saying hi? Are we saying hello?
There we go.
Say hi.
Hey, look, I appreciate you, and I appreciate that little one as always.
But thank you.
So, I appreciate you, but you're absolutely right.
day.
Thank you so much. I thank you so much, dear. You're absolutely right. This is the show to have those conversations. Nir Muhammad, screenwriter. We got to bring her back on much sooner. And God willing, we will. Nir, thank you so much for being so good for the culture.
Always. Thanks for having me, Farajii.
You're welcome. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. Just a little one. Just, that's, anything can happen. Just walk across the street. But folks, thank you so much for taking time, for extra time with us today. We truly, truly appreciate it. I want to thank Nira, our culture crew member. I want to thank Dr. Gerald Horn for joining us as well. We truly, truly appreciate that. Make sure y'all continue to show your support for Black Star Network at blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure you check out Brother Roland Martin, Big Brother Roland. Get his latest book, White Fear, that is out there right now. Man, oh man, we truly need that book. So pick up your copy today, wherever books are sold. All right, stay tuned. RMU is coming at you 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But remember this, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.